Of the ECS Board of Trustees to order. Thank you all for being here. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And we'll be meeting I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission of ECS is to educate each student to high academic standards, innovative curricula that will foster knowledge, love of, and respect for the environment and preserve it for future generations. We grow citizens. Every ECS graduate will be an actively engaged citizen driving thoughtful change in the world around them. Is that vision? We have some guests to recognize. Very briefly, I'm going to recognize our board attorney, Andrea Garrity, who's just going to introduce herself.
I just wanted to be here to say hello. Sometime I'll come back and we can talk longer. But my practice is generally a real estate practice, and that's how we got involved in the first place, was looking at the school's ownership or the school's operations and ownership of the two lower schools. I own Vic and Scott here in Pittsburgh. We have a number of lawyers who are familiar with ECS's work, so that we can help with employment and help with property and contract matters, because we all do that. And then we can also help with employment and land use and other kinds of issues that the school has, and of course, any potential liability issues. I talk with the school on a regular basis, talk with Adam on a regular basis, and then, historically, I've always talked with members of your, the executive team of your board. I wanted to be sure you knew who I was, and I wanted to be sure I said hello. And whenever there's time to come back and talk to you more, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And we'll be sure to connect you with her. And I also wanted to recognize a potential board member, Shante Paul. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Shante Paul. Take up a lot of time, but nice to be here.
All right, come on here. And I think okay, so we have a lot of special guests here. We are pleased to recognize past and present eco stewards, some of whom are in attendance here. This group of students embody the ECS mission of preserving the environment for future generations through their commitment and dedication to the environment, particularly for Park. With the expertise and support of their amazing advisor, Ms. Nita Olson, the group has adopted an area for Park where they remove invasive species, including spotted lanternflies and plants, and replace them with native plants. And some of their more recent celebrations include the creation and maintenance of a rain garden at Intermediate, and the successful presentation of their work to the EPA Mid-Atlantic Administrator Adam Ortiz and his guest Congresswoman Lee on April 2nd. So thank you all for being model students and global stewards. And I think at this time, the students have prepared some things they want to say.
Bo was one of the first eco stewards that I got to work with in 2021. When we came back from the pandemic, we were allowed to have a spring club because we were outside. He was with me third, fourth, fifth grade. Do you have a favorite memory?
Yeah, we every season we got to go into the back lot and pick up a bunch of trash, and it was just so cool to see how much we were able to collect and the difference between before and now.
Yeah, sure. And Brent, do you have a favorite memory too?
We go on these field trips in each session. So last field trip, we went ice skating in South Park and we went to some ice skating and
one of the ways we do it after we've had a whole session is we'll celebrate by going to explore a different park. And Sandy, you were gonna tell us about one of the projects that we did in the fall.
One of the projects we do in the fall is we remove, the spotted butterfly eggs that would be, born in the spring, and that would make more eggs, and we make more and more, and we do a lot more butterflies. So we use, credit cards or something, to scrape them into rubbing alcohol to stop them.
And Nomi, you were gonna share why do you like to make this year?
Well, I enjoy being a sport because it's better for the earth and it like helps like the animals where like the water is better and where it like it's just fine and it's like just like good.
Thank you, and that's what I was will have one thing to say about why she thinks it's important to you because you're.
It's important to be because we get to help the environment and community around us.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you all for sharing and coming to our meeting. We really appreciate the work that all of you are doing. We do have some special certificates on very nice robust paper that I will get to this also to hand out because I think I have a lot more certificates than I see people here. And just would like to get a picture of you before possible. You guys can stay there. So the board. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we will continue with the meeting. The eco stewards are welcome to stay and watch discussion of policy or takeoff.
Motion to set up the kids table?
Okay, so we're gonna move into our consent agenda. Does anyone have any items that you want to say or extract from the consent agenda? Or okay, so we're gonna pull off. Anybody else? Okay, so I have resolution 2024-4-2118, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the consent agenda for April 17th, 2024 be approved.
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Okay. We're gonna go into. Okay. Yeah, okay.
So the board of presentation is actually already across the board, so Kara. And then the other thing that's kind of connected is Burger Month. So I wanted to share some things about Burger Month with you. Have your packets, the green calendar, print it off for you in case you end up just also email, but it's there for you to see. It's a live link. But I was talking to students and folks in school about the best way to share that with you. And I thought that the kids would do a really good job, and we've done a wake-up session about Earth Month. And so I'm going to let the kids get on screen and share a little about Earth Month.
Breaking news! It's Earth Month!
Make sure you check out the ECS Christmas channel.
We are glad to be from ECS Meet this Friday. Check out this festival's color shades Meet. Oh, come on! ECS Meet. See what's missing signal. Oh, see you there!
So this one was really something in the end here. That is our own Mr. McCann there.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, so that was for the intro to Earth Month, and then this week is Zero Waste Week at ECS. So this is their presentation on zero waste.
Hey, ECS.
Have you checked out the Green Waste Calendar? Did you know it's Zero Waste Week?
What's that?
It's basically where we think about how we're consuming and using resources, like energy, plastic.
Like food?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, speaking of food, did you know we're having a food drive?
How do I know?
Cans, fruits, vegetables, but make sure they're in a can.
The crew that wins gets a pizza party.
And the grade that wins gets a ton of extra.
Mr. Bonson has some music here, so let's roll out.
Oh,
Good morning, ECS. This is Mr. Brown. Please join us on the 19th for Walk, Bike, and Roll Day, where you can walk, bike, skateboard, scooter, rollerblade, anything on wheels around the school. There'll be a track set up for everyone, so please come join us on the 19th.
Watch out.
I'll see you there.
sounds like Friday's gonna be a party.
Yes, Friday is Planet Palooza. We have a bunch of activities to celebrate Earth Day, which is coming up soon.
We're gonna count cans and see who the winner of the food drive is. Yeah!
Goodbye, ECS.
Bye!
So this is the Green calendar, the way that it's structured is that families are able to go try some of these things out. There's intention settings each week. Try them out at home, they can take pictures of themselves and upload those to our media. There's a form that they can do too, so they're entered into a prize too, and staff and families can do it. It's just something to get us all reminded of why we're here and why we're ECS again. Zero Waste Week is off to a great start. Intermediate has some zero waste projects going on in their cafeteria, doing arts and artwork. And then you've heard what they're doing here with walk, bike, and roll to school on Friday. And then also our big sustainability nights are coming up. And so I do ask that if you can join us for those events, that would be great. The first one is on May 10th, and that's for 6th through 12th. And then on May 17th is K5. We do have some representatives from Boston Green Academy coming to spend some time with us at our school, and they'll be here for that May 10th event. So if you want to come and kind of meet them and kind of think about what we're doing in terms of what they're doing, and share some information between schools, that would be fun to do it. So that's all I have for our green groups and our Earth Month. And now, what a great segue into the next board education piece, which is PSSA, which start next week. And so Dwight's going to share a little bit about that.
I'm always getting the scintillating topic. It's good. Just a little quick thing. PSSA started in 1992, so it's been 30 years they've been around, and they're currently costing the state $50 million a year. there's a whole discussion around that and why we're not using a test that's already been nationally known. But we won't put that here. Every year we do them. I have to order them back in October and give them the dates we're going to give them. There's always the possibility of monitoring in from the state to make sure we're doing what we should do, we're keeping them safe, the groups are set up correctly and all of that. So we've already done all of that. The teachers have to take a test. The learning experience. It's the PA State Test Administrators Training. They take that, that's for the test administrators, which are our classroom teachers, but also our proctors. Anyone involved with PSSAs has to take that test. Then the school administrator has to take another one, and then the district coordinator has to take a third one. Mandy and I, being lucky enough to be district coordinators, took all three. They are probably one of the dumbest tests ever. And it really speaks to their view of the educational level of the people who are doing this. They're really ridiculous, but we have to take them every year. The tests and manuals arrive, and I just received an email 5 minutes ago that Shapiro and Truesdale, I believe, who's the Secretary of Ed, tomorrow are announcing that as of 2026, there will be online tests, that they will be changed so that they are geared to what the kids are used to doing on computers, like drag and drop, things like that, rather than multiple choice. There are a couple other things we're going to announce. We're doing paper and pencil, which we've done online in the past. There was a sense that our people are doing as well online as they were on paper and pencil, which is why we're back this year. I'll be glad to go back to online. The boxes arrived last week. I've been spending this week and probably most of next week labeling, separating them, getting them set up for every classroom. ELA is 3 days, 3 mornings. Math is 2 mornings. Science is 2 mornings. So you're basically looking at 2 weeks of instruction that are pretty much lost because of that. There's a testing administrator and a proctor in every room. So there are 2 adults in every room who walk around and make sure everyone's doing what they should be doing. At the end, we get to put them in plastic bags and box them in the boxes they came in and send them back, and then the scores come. We try and get them down. There's a deadline, and we did it every year. Where if you get them in soon enough, they will get them back to you like within a couple of weeks. So we always aim for that, so we can get them back as soon as possible. It used to be, well, in some cases, it's August or September before you got the results, which is really kind of ridiculous, because how do you plan them if you're already into the school year and you haven't got those results? But I think that's a short view. If you have a question about the PSSAs, and I might be able to answer, as I say, next year we'll be going back to online, and by 2026 they will mandate that everyone be online.
Can you talk a little bit about the repercussions or implications of the results of the test, how does it affect us, and also do we have any parents out there that could
We probably have,
Right now, there's 7 at middle and 5 at intermediate that are choosing to potentially opt out. So what happens, in order to opt out in the state of Pennsylvania, you need to do so for the religious exemption. And so you come, make an appointment, you do the test, see if you do actually in fact have religious, something in there is something that you don't want to see your children have, and then write the letter to say that you would like to use the religious exemption. So right now, we have the potential of 12.
and sign the confidentiality agreement, which you won't reveal what you've just seen. And as the repercussions, the state releases the results, and you're compared to other schools. I think probably the assessments we're doing are with maps is probably more in line with what we look at. Or, as everyone says, that's a snapshot in time, that's a moment, this is how they're doing. But they've gotten better. Back at the beginning, the benchmark, the line kept on moving around because they couldn't figure out what was proficient. So that line always moves, so you never knew where it was for a number of years. I think they've gotten better at it, but as I said, I don't understand. Well, I do know, I do understand. It's $50 million. There's a reason why we have our own test. as opposed to just purchasing what is already there.
Yeah, a lot of the scores that are released are based, so we get like there's a website that you can go to look and see how we're doing based on all the others, which we have shared before, all the other schools, and it's just a matter of growth also. So are your students, not only are they performing in the benchmark as in the fifth grade standard, but are you also growing students? So it's not just enough in the state of Pennsylvania to have all your students pass the test, but if they pass the test before, they need to keep growing. So that's the score that's also reported out to the
I think, that's the one thing positive thing, I think, is looking at growth.
Yeah.
Because, you have, I know there was one district, I was monitoring the programs, that you would not consider a very good district. Because the kids were all performing well. Those kids were growing. They're getting growth out of those kids. And some of the top districts, those kids weren't growing anymore. They were just there, and you weren't getting any growth. So the fact that looking at growth now, I think is really important.
Is growth different from the PBS?
And that's what it is, yeah.
How do you think parents and teachers understand PBS? Do you?
Teachers do, but I don't know, parents are, I think they're getting there, hopefully, with the math scores, and so we're doing a better and better job each year of showing parents those scores. Are we there yet? No, but I think it's something that we can always improve on, and if they can understand the growth of their own child, that's what I would rather have them do, rather than being able to understand a very complicated system.
Any other questions?
Do we need more equipment to handle the online for everybody? Are we there?
Yeah,
We've got them in the
past,
past.
yeah.
We're good.
Yeah,
And Greg says we'll be down.
he does.
Thank you.
Scintillating, wasn't it? Oh, and I do have all three of my certificates.
Let's check those before we clap for them.
Should have been on better.
Okay, we're gonna do some committee reports, so.
Yeah, I was not prepared. Adam was not at the executive committee, so
Just the highlights if you have any.
Stan, is there anything in particular we want to like punting to make sure we cover?
I'm just trying to think. I can't think of anything in particular that I think we need to highlight from that perspective.
Okay,
I'm happy to punt it further along if anyone else does, but yeah. I don't know, it's a fun, but yeah, top of my head, I think.
That's fine, I'll give you more than 60 seconds. Okay, anything from governance?
Nothing from governance right now. I know that John and I have been talking a little bit more about, I think we did talk about this a little bit at the executive committee meeting, but just for the greater board, we talked a little bit about a number of times about sort of the board policy review process, and so we're further along coming up with the process, and John has actually assessing.
Yeah, why don't we can just talk about that now.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this?
I don't know, John, since you put this together, I mean, I'm happy to defer to you. I wasn't planning on talking about it yet, but I'm, I'm happy to have it be the intro for you if you want to take a crack at it.
Yeah, I appreciate the partnership in that. Obviously, we want to get through review and kind of our policies. Before we do that, we had to have a solid process through which we could indeed journey every single time. And so, working with Stan, we determined who we want, what are we trying to do here. The vast majority of our work, of course, work in the coming year will be amending existing policies, but there are also new policies, and then retiring and sunsetting policies. So we had to have a process through which Tanya, whoever is assigned it, to do this work in the background and support the board, upload these documents in an orderly way, ensuring that we get a public-facing moment. We also get some time with the board. We also get those red line documents that we want. And this document reads vertically, so you can jump in and you can see amending policy there. You start with an upload, and then it heads down. and it talks about ultimately what Tanya needs to do in terms of loading goes up for board agendas as well as onto diligent communities. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Stan liked it, so at that point I thought I'm a winner here. So then, of course, we have a number of other folks look at it. Ultimately, Tanya too makes sense to her. But this will join the large document downstairs in Randy's office. At the front end, it's actually listed as policy for renewing, adding, and retiring policies. So that's what we're going to. There's a resolution on the board tonight, the board to approve, so we can sort of walk away from this and then start passing policies through this process as next. We'll tee one up before the next board meeting. Well, notice our names are on top, the author's names are.
Since Stan approved of this, I'd like to ask one question at least.
With this many boys in a room, unlikely not to.
So just in terms of retiring and sunsetting, the very last step 3, is to delete the existing policy and remove it from the master files in the ECS administrative offices. I just want to make sure we've looked at any other document retention policies we may have and make sure this complies with it. And to think also, is there any reason to hold on to old board policies for if somebody was to challenge some action later, that we would want to be able to reference them?
I would say that we probably should have a retired policies, something. I think that probably it's a good challenge. That's something I would probably do.
But that said, this is all very helpful.
So we need a home for retired policies.
So we just have a section on diligent communities of retired policies. Or something.
It doesn't necessarily need to be public facing either. That might be something for our own internal.
So it was explained to me that everything on diligent communities is a facsimile, right? The actual signed hard copy are in those binders, so the real ones, as it were, live on the shelf in communities. And we could add a hard copy there, and that could be, we would remove them out and put them into that binder. We could absolutely put them on diligent communities as retired documents as well.
And then we've always, whenever we've amended or changed the policy, we've always kept the other policies in the binders. We never disposed of them, we always kept them. And I don't know whether that was just because we weren't sure whether to throw them out or not, but if we thought it was important to have that history.
I think it's a good practice. In fact, I think it's good. And one of the things I know John and we talked about, and Dave and I also talked about as well, when we were looking at just some of the other benchmarking of what other folks do, and just how this often works. You often see policies where on the current version of the policy, they'll tell you the last times that policy was amended. So if you need to trace it back because you have an incident that occurs and you need to see what was the policy 2 years ago, you can do that. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
All right, and so one more point before I'm beginning this fabulous document. There is on the electronic version a link through to the format that's referenced along this way, the other way, and I think this discussion was about the format that they like. And Stan found that, I think it was what school district? That's one of those that we determined, and that's linked into this document. So again, Tony can go back and ensure that whatever, as we replace them, renew them, add them, or that, etc.
Okay, so we will, if you guys can keep perusing that document, we'll come back to vote on this in a little bit.
One other thing I just want to government's, just I'll just take that as an opportunity to just remind everybody, as always, we're always looking for new potential board members, so anybody who, I know you all know that probably, I've heard you say that, others say that many times, but just keep thinking about it, especially the current parents. I think we have a number of current parents on the board, but fewer than we we've had in the past, so it's always something to think about. But yeah, please come to me or Adam or anybody, and let us know if you have any ideas of people who might good board members for us.
Can I ask a question on that? We had a policy that I don't know what happened to it, which was under consideration for board members, children, and the lottery process. As somebody who doesn't have a child who's anywhere close to this yet, I just want to ask if that was up for consideration. What happened to that?
It's sitting in the background, ready to run through this process.
Okay, got it.
And just to sort of add a last thing on Sam's question about a board generally, so just expect some phone calls from me in the coming weeks. One of the discussions that Stan and I had, what works for our board too is connecting you all as board members to a passion that you have and some of that work that's happening under the hood here. And I'll take Nick, for instance, right? You've landed pretty quickly with Michelle. And there's clearly a bond and a home and a ton of work to do in that space. And I think that's part of really fun board service. And so I think my goal in the coming months is to ensure that all of you find a home that's really good, a good set of projects to get your teeth into. Because I think there's a ton of fun work under the hood here. We want to make sure that everyone, Shante, as you come on to, your background is all counseling, and our wonderful counseling staff doesn't have, a friend on the board. So there's a home waiting for you right there. So I'm going to zip around and sort of have another sort of catch up. Megan too, I was chatting to about her leadership in the military, and just some fantastic talent right there. I want to make sure that we grow as an organization as a result of the massive talent on this board. So just expect a good bug in the coming weeks and pull in for a cup of coffee or whatever it might be, and just try and build those relationships. And thanks, Dan, for listening to me.
Okay, well, next to Education Committee.
Yeah, so in our last meeting, Vicki joined us, who you've all met, obviously, and it was a great conversation. We kept her for over an hour. But the good news is you've seen basically everything we talked about. So we talked about all of the Earth Month stuff happening. I know I sent an email out to all of you, but please, if you can make it as board members to attend any of the events going on, which were all listed. Students are excited, it sounds like teachers and everyone's really excited about them. It'd be great to have a board presence there for all of this happening. But obviously they put a ton of work into just these calendars and events and the whole 9 yards. So that was really exciting. And then we also talked with her a little bit about PSSAs and how that goes for our teachers and administrators and everything. But I don't think there was anything to add beyond what was already shared with us related to that. So I get the easy way out because we ended up talking about all of our topics here, but it was great.
Finance and facilities, Megan.
So the PPS union contract expires in June, but ours is not until 2025, so it'll be interesting to kind of see the outcome of those contract negotiations and how that may or may not affect what we have going on. We're always assessing different financial situations. We're expecting reduced revenues from PPS, so kind of assessing the impact and what kind of gaps may need to be filled. In addition to that, the ESSER funding, which was out of COVID, is coming and winding down, so that kind of puts an additional gap. So just being very conscious of that and proactive. Also assessing there's different internal operating efficiencies, a little bit more infrastructure around our contracts that we have and major contracts and approval line items. We're kind of approving $500 line items, and with the budget as big as ours, $500 just no longer makes sense. So just kind of looking for operating efficiencies in that respect. Also undergoing a pretty substantial capital needs assessment of our existing building assets. So this is going to take a look at the good things and the bad things in each of the buildings and then kind of give us a real, very solid understanding of what needs to be dealt with. From a dollar perspective, from a residual useful life perspective. So that's coming to us soon.
It just landed this afternoon.
How about that?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's always like sticker
shop, because they'll find everything, so it's a matter of prioritizing and figuring out what the priorities and what kind of budgets we have to, go along with that. Two more things. So of course, the high school, just constantly going back and forth, never not a conversation on the high school. I did have a question just kind of last week, heard those contracts were being brought back from Josh with some additional questions. I'm not sure if there's something recirculated, but those are for Turner and Avon, our contract construction management and architect. Thank you. And then that was it. That was 67. So there's a lot going on at our dull moment at the Finance and Facilities Committee. I think, did I hit everything, team, for the most part?
Yeah. Okay, then maybe we can just jump back to that topic. If you want to mention the AI thing.
I'm gonna go through the AI through executive.
Okay. Okay, never mind that. Come back to that. Okay, CEO succession team update. David, anything you wanted to say in the public meeting?
Sure. Just that we are on schedule with the schedule that's been published. I just am so impressed that we have had 132 applicants. Our outreach from the on-ramps, the firm that's helping us with the search, reached out to 196 individuals in the process. And we're just heading towards the home stretch one step at a time. We just want to acknowledge that that there's a lot of interest in who the candidates are, and we are intentionally being reserved about that. We have to honor the confidentiality of people who may have jobs right now and not want their employers to know that they're searching for jobs. So among other reasons, we can't identify who the candidates are, but I can just say from my own personal perspective, there are very strong candidates, and we're very pleased by the interest. I think the school should be very complimented by the quality and quantity of the applicants.
That's positive. Okay, ECS FT representative. No.
I forwarded you the email from Candace, she said there's no
Okay. Okay, and PCO, I did not hear anything from the PCO in this meeting. No. Okay. Okay, so we can go back to the policy approval process. Any further discussion about that process before we vote on it? Okay, so resolution 2024-4-2119, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the school that the policy approval process be approved. Do you have a motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes, and I think we are not approving these other contracts right now, so yeah, we're not gonna do these other ones. Okay, we are gonna go to executive session. Sorry.
Schematic, on the back, we're going to go through the schematics. And then we'll.
Okay, all right. Schematics.
Right, so just as contextual, you know, we're talking about high school, we're talking about AI contracts, we'll get into that for executive session, but ultimately, the team, the finance team, so the team wanted us to take the opportunity to walk through this schematic and program documents tonight. So just we built context for what we're talking about. Let's talk about what the schematic is. The schematic is basically a drawing, an early one at that, of the high school building as it stands today. I know there's continued design structure that needs to be worked on. I know that there's a storm shelter designed to be sort of incorporated in this. So it is as it stands. The second document is the program document. How that comes to us, of course, is many months of meeting with program staff, faculty, and us and the board to actually design what do we want. That's the first conversation you have with an architect. They're like, okay, how's this building going to be used? What is its function? What happens under the hood? And ultimately, you end up with a program document. And so, Maddie, I don't know if you want to sort of share some of the parts and places of this high school that are interesting to you from a program standpoint.
Yeah, so some of the things that are really exciting to think about are the fact that our high school would have 2 dedicated science labs, one's dry, one's wet, and then also some science classrooms. So something that we don't have right now, so we would be able to invest in some of the equipment in the labs and really elevate that science program there. There's also courtyard space that's in between those science classrooms and the labs. So it's on that second floor of the schematic, if you're looking at it. And that would be a place where kids can get outside to their science classrooms and think about that. We've also thought about flexible space in terms of how do you use not only classrooms that are pretty standard size classrooms, but there's things on there that are listed as study areas, resource rooms, a literacy lab. So there's a lot of more flexible use, so the teachers and students could check out different places. They could use a study area in between classes. They could go to a literacy space if they needed to check out a space for a little bit quieter time. There's also, even though we are in a very inside a building, there's also some space for a garden. So that's on that top floor there in pink. There's a science garden, so there's some outdoor space. So we try to take as much as we can the places and things that we feel like are able to do the programs that we want really well and highlight them in the building. And so even our tech studio, which is like our studio space for makerspace type of work, they are also we're trying to carve out some outdoor space for that too. So the idea is if you have a bike ECS program and our high school students are learning how to build bikes, how to work on bikes, they could have a space where they could take those outside, work on them right there, and then go right outside and ride the bikes. So it's a pretty amazing way to think about how our program will actually be realized.
So additionally, there are co-working spaces that's unique to this building. So we don't anticipate a number of these classrooms being assigned to a teacher in traditional schools. Teacher lives in a building, in a room, they have their desk in the corner, and that's kind of theirs. And we want to unassign a number of rooms, and hence there are 2 co-working spaces for teachers essentially where you can put your stuff, your locker, you can put your desk at that point, which is why so we have some rotating use of classrooms. This also reflects a school that has a number of students outside the building. So that its location was designed to have students attend Chatham and other schools, and so ultimately the draw on this building is less.
There's a kitchen for cooking. It says cooking on the schematic, but it's really more about kitchen learning space. And so the idea of how can we help as a school, our programs in our intermediate school, growth, middle, and high school, and then also how can we help some of our students and think about like a coffee tree roaster or some other way for our students to get some entrepreneurship working, we get in that area too, with some internships for
I have a question about, is the literacy, how do you guys think about libraries these days? I mean, I'm just curious about libraries and whatever you're in right now.
Yeah, so, I mean, libraries on the whole are kind of, if you go to larger districts, they're taking their libraries and turning them into makerspaces and tech labs and really thinking about libraries in a different way. And it's no longer just a place where you go check out books, but it's a place that you engage in learning. And so this space, this literacy space, is not necessarily a place where all the books would be held, but a place where kids can go and interact with the book that they have. So the books might be housed in classrooms, they could be electronic books. How many of us now have Kindle, apps on our phones that when you're riding the bus, you can read your book right there. So their electronic books are also coming to kind of be with our students. In a way, this space allows us to help teach our students how to get back and interact with books again in a really positive way. And then also the thought of like, it's a space, a quiet space, so you have kids in all aspects of their day, that they might just need a place to go and sit and meditate, or read, or just be in a quieter, less chaotic space in a hallway. So we're really thinking about our high school in terms of flexibility and ways that children learn into their adulthood, that agency, and what they need in their learning, and how they can use space, and who can they go to check that space out of, so that they know that someone is accountable, they're accountable to where they are, they're still doing what they need to do. So, yeah, libraries are an interesting, this is coming up from a person whose child loves the library, so it's like there's a push and pull, right? So you have to, kids can go to libraries and check out books, and then they can come and use them in their school.
Even at like Carnegie Library, you can see so many spaces that are becoming more interactive, and getting into science and tech and stuff. Right, it's not just books anymore.
Yeah.
It's a,
And they're not quiet.
they are not quiet, yeah, you're right, they are, the kids areas, like, there's a lot to do there.
What space is there for recreation?
There you go, I was about to say, what does the building not have, right? Because you're looking for gym, you don't find it. Again, our relationship with Kingsley Association, which is really hard to walk on this way, that has a full gym and a swimming pool, and so forth. And our intent is to have a fuller relationship there. We could build a gym, but we'd rather push those goals towards a community center that has all of those facilities. And so we entered into negotiations with those folks some years back, and they are anticipating our presence in that space.
One of the lawyer pieces I don't know much about, other than, do you feel that there's any issues with just like a long-term relationship with them? Are they financially secure? Is that an issue? Because if that asset and resource is gone, yeah. I just asked last month there, it's gone. Right, so they could pull, they had to put in a lot of needs right there, and I don't know if that's a result of, lack of funding, lack of whatever, but I am curious about the long-term depth of that.
We've been a tenant and lived in that space for how many years at this juncture? And worked with their leadership team and spent some time thinking about how we can co-fund, how we can co-invest in that space. And so we're really committed and also really eager to support that organization. It leads in the right direction. It is a great partner for us, and also accessing community central space. So we continue to support the group.
I have a question if you all can hear me.
We can hear. We'll repeat if necessary.
Okay, great. I was just curious about what's the capacity of the largest room for people to gather currently in this schematic?
What's the capacity of the largest room for people to gather in this current schematic?
That's 60.
60?
Yeah, so I guess that my question is then, like, you wouldn't be able to, like, where would you envision having a full student body? Or like even a full class meeting?
Okay. So the question is, would there be any place where the whole student body or whole class could gather if necessary?
The whole class, yes. So the cafe, the way that the thinking is that lower level there. The cafe is open onto that hallway there and the stack of the stairwell. And so the stairwell was originally thought about in terms of stadium seating also. So you could put one whole grade level on that cafeteria in the tables, and then some extra on the stairs.
Depending on how we were to install the wall between the theater and the cafeteria, you potentially can roll back, and at that point you got some serious. We always looked at that theater also as a seminar room too. We looked at City Charter High and the way that they used their large seminar room, and it was just useful.
So what is below the cafe? It's kind of wide.
Do you hear, Megan?
Those are the stairs you're saying?
So in the, like, this is like a seating type of thing, and that's the stairs are also seating.
Oh,
That's
this is
not-
like-
No, those are lockers.
Oh, these are lockers.
Those are the lockers, but they're low, and then that's the seating space.
Gotcha.
So like you can go in through there.
Now, this is a reduction, a reiteration of our earlier journey. We came down in terms of square footage. So what did we lose? The fourth floor. We still have access to the fourth floor. And we'll work to terminate power and additional services to that fourth floor should we want to engage it. But we lose some classrooms, some environmental labs up on that top floor. They get shifted down to that classroom on the side. And again, as we push through this, where we want to maximize every dollar and see if we can reintroduce ourselves to some of that work. The building also reflects some of our aspirations in terms of sustainability and performance. We were a passive house at this point. We're going to move towards those goals, whether we reach them or not. We're going to certainly continue to try well and reset air. Also certifications that talk about indoor air quality and so on and so forth. So we're all committed in that space. But of course, we'll work to see how far our goals go. Bike parking, don't see anything externally here. This building fills the lot fully. It's a true urban building. It runs right through the sidewalk. There are 1 or 2 spaces associated with handicap parking. That's it. We moved through with zoning to solve that, and ultimately there are some spaces for bike parking and bike maintenance on the right-hand side too. Just don't see this.
And for parking for teachers, it's just being
streamlined. And then we're as we said to zoning, we're going to discourage parking with something on their lap for students, and we said that we use public transportation. But ultimately, we did the traffic study, and that was reviewed through zoning, and ultimately found to be adequate for building. Yeah, and so, as the board, when you have time, wander through the program document. That is an organic document, and one that will change, and we want you will be a part of that as newer board members. We've got a long way to go on this. Obviously, lines on pieces of paper are really cheap. When you start putting walls up, it gets really more expensive. So we're not done in terms of design. We've still got a design portion to go through. So we should set up some more times for this team to come together and dig in and think how they want to make some changes, and then there will be the architect along the way. If he's listening, he's probably sweating as he, but also happy to share more. And this, of course, is a tiny drawing and really difficult to see. So, we can get into security, that all of these layers upon layers. So security for the building has been approached 50 different ways, right? Maybe even in the middle of that. And ultimately, it's another discussion too. So, as the board gets to know this, we're happy to jump into the first of those.
Can I ask a very silly question potentially? What is the school going to be called?
That is a great question, and I don't have a solid answer to that. So, beyond Hamilton Avenue, so I should throw that to the board and say that that's a wonderful opportunity to think about what we might want to name it around its function. I think we really have heard about what its intention is a solid thing to do. Yeah, but that hasn't been answered yet.
If Heinz wants that.
Having
Now
said
they lost the field, you might want
having
to.
said that, there's a sponsor out there.
Document foundation.
We did it, that early iteration had a sport court over the top there. It was a basketball court on the roof on the floor. It was pretty magnificent. But, because those, there are a few in the city, but sadly that was one of those things. So, but if there is a large sponsor out there listening today, wonderfully to have your name.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion now that we go to executive session. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we will take a 30-second break and go to executive session.
Eating people for the